Hello once again from the Prim Reaper. It's been a little while now since I dusted off my Misuse of Words series, but something happened over the last month that was so egregious I just had to draft a video about it. Now, given the private context of the initial discussion, I will not be able to share the full comments here, which is always a shame. But I will do my best to create a realistic enactment here.
Here is a link to Controversial Figures event for anyone interested.
Hey, maybe we can talk about why we disagree with controversial figures' points without ad hominems and personal attacks? Demanding a respectful and professional tone in discussions is coded in white supremacy! The worst part is, I'm not even exaggerating for comic effect. Okay, so, as is usual for my Misuse of Words series, let's begin with a proper definition for the term white supremacy. White supremacy, the belief, theory, or doctrine that white people are inherently superior to people from all other racial and ethnic groups, especially black people, and are therefore rightfully the dominant group in any society. So maybe let's just take a few seconds to let this definition percolate. Really take in the gravitas behind it. Because the true concept really is one that is very serious and deserves to be rightfully challenged. So, having taken in this definition proper, and then analyzing its use in the previous little skit, I'm hoping that a few immediate and frankly exceptionally damning problems very quickly become apparent. By implying that demanding of respectful and professional behavior in what is supposed to be a mature and collaborative setting amongst fellow professionals, in a field where our literal code of ethics demands such respectful and professional behavior, is white supremacy, and given that I am one of the few people in this discussion that is sitting here suggesting that we should conduct ourselves with respectful behavior befitting our profession, it sure does sound suspiciously as though you are, by extension, implying that I am a white supremacist. And I don't mean to be a sensitive Sally, but I am really not comfortable with that idea, if you get what I'm saying. By implying that holding and demanding a respectful and professional tone in professional discussions amongst professionals is the domain of white supremacy, again, referencing the previous dictionary definition of white supremacy, it sure does sound suspiciously as though you are, at best, implying that non-white individuals must unnaturally constrain themselves to fit into respectful and professional discussions, and at worst, implying that such discussions are unreasonable to expect of non-white individuals because they are primarily, or even exclusively, the domain of white people. As someone who is not a white supremacist, I am really not comfortable with that idea, if you get what I'm saying. This is, I think, a great example of why throwing this accusation around so carelessly can so easily backfire on the user in multiple ways. But this is hardly the only example. In fact, this one in particular has become so mind-bogglingly ubiquitous that it seems like there isn't any one thing that's immune from being accused of being some form of white supremacy in some way. I've come up with a whole ass montage of articles that are using the same argument, probably without too much thought to the points they might be accidentally making. Wow, I might be losing my grip on my reading comprehension or something, but that sure does seem like an awful lot of things that we're calling white supremacy that couldn't be located in that little definition I talked about before. Since I obviously can't sit here and pick all of these apart, I'm just going to rifle through them just to find a few examples of the problems I'm talking about. Family privilege is defined as the benefits, often invisible and unacknowledged, that one receives by belonging to family systems long upheld in society as superior to all others. It serves to advantage certain family forms over others, and is typically bestowed upon white traditional nuclear families. Family privilege is a structural mechanism hidden within our white supremacist society that creates systemic barriers to equal opportunity and justice for all families. Our extreme discomfort with discord and our inability to sustain even the mildest of stress fractures when our tools fail us is why we are not moving the needle on the meaningful dismantling of systems and institutions that intentionally uphold white supremacy. We recoil from the concepts of subversion and disruption like vampires from the hot sun. Because subversion is not polite, and disruption is not nice. We need to embrace the discomfort, the edges, and the messiness of overturning that which has kept us in the number 2 slot of the power and privilege pyramid for over 500 years. Pulling oneself up by the bootstraps may seem like a harmlessly earnest expression that inspires a national work ethic, propelling all who participate toward the American dream. But that kind of upward mobility is simply unattainable for the majority, and a new report says the narrative is a key driver of the racial wealth gap. The bootstraps trope, glamorized historically in the pursuits of heroic robber barons and the rags-to-riches tales of Horatio Alger, has become the basis for a belief in a meritocratic system, even though self-made stories are extremely rare. The last example I'll give for now is just a few brief points made in the article simply titled White Supremacy Culture by Tema Okun. The article purports to be a list of characteristics of white supremacy culture that show up in our organizations. So what characteristics made the list? Perfectionism, sense of urgency, defensiveness, quantity over quality, worship of the written word, only one right way, paternalism, either-or thinking, power hoarding, fear of open conflict, individualism, I'm the only one, progress is bigger, more, objectivity, right to comfort. So, these are just a few great examples of the problems I'm talking about. It's not necessarily my intention in this video to individually pick apart each of these articles in great detail, but just briefly, I feel like the nuclear family structure has been demonstrated to have a wide variety of benefits for all involved, including stability, financial security, consistency, differences in the parenting roles that the two parents, commonly but not limited to a mother and father dyad, bring, benefits to health and education levels, among other things. And these benefits exist for people of all cultures, not just white cultures. Having a system based on meritocracy ensures that you are finding the best talent to get the work done, which very often does not involve hiring exclusively white people. And I'm sorry, but if you try to tell me that open conflict, discomfort, subjectivity, and rudeness are in any way preferable to the opposite of those things in interacting with others, I'd tell you to take a look at the state of our dialogue and social relations these days and tell you to think again. But now let's get into the actual problems I have with claiming that all of these things represent the big WS. 1. As I said before, even if it is not their intention, claiming that the things I listed above are examples of white supremacy is implicitly claiming that these things are somehow the domain of white people and outside the domain of people of other races, which is legitimately racist as hell. 2. Even if you want to talk about some of the barriers that some folks belonging to other ethnicities may have in some of the topics I've posted, you can do so without using incendiary language like white supremacy. For example, I guarantee you that most people who are insisting on politeness and civil discussion are not doing so because they believe in the superiority of their race. I guarantee you that most people who are hardline, rigid perfectionists in the office aren't typically like that because of the color of their skin. What an absolutely weird leap to make. 3. There's of course the baseline problem with all misuses of words. If you try to bundle everything under the sun under the original concept, you water it down and bury the legitimately quite serious topic in superfluous nonsense. There are people out there who honestly believe that white people are superior, smarter, better than other races out there just by virtue of racial characteristics alone. This is bad enough without trying to tie other concepts into it. 4. If you call too many things with objectively positive benefits to them white supremacy, you run the very real risk of creating the opposite problem and making white supremacy look attractive to some people. Think about it. If on one side of the spectrum you have professional, respectful, polite nuclear families that got their jobs through hard work and dedication, and you label this white supremacy, do you really think that people are going to want to lean towards the other end of the spectrum just because you're trying to present it as the supposedly non-racist option? Not likely. No, you're just going to have people shrugging their shoulders and saying, "Welp, guess I'm a white supremacist now." And what's worse, if you have people starting to lean in that direction, even jokingly, you run the very real risk that some of them will start integrating actual racist elements of that concept into their worldviews, such as believing that people of other races are just uncivilized, or refuse to work hard, or can't integrate into society, or other demonstrably untrue things like this. Guys, of all the words we don't want to misuse, this is a pretty big one. There are lots of similar problems to the misuse of racism videos I made quite a while back, but there's some problems unique to this particular term that I hope I've made a bit clearer in this video. I strongly urge people to be very cautious what things they want to ascribe to a phrase like white supremacy, because for all your moral grandstanding, you might accidentally wind up making yourself look like the racist one. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.